to PM Express Business Edition. And he has finally taken over, the person who will be responsible for the economy and when it comes to finance. Yes, I'm talking about the Minister of Finance, Dr. Ato Forson. But what are the expectations coming from the business community and the challenges ahead for this minister as he actually began work today, engaging several players in the industry, especially the directors at the Ministry of Finance? What are your expectations of this new finance minister and the challenges ahead? And also, have you been watching the Ghana cedi? Well, if I restrict myself to the banking rate, is moved from the 14 Ghana cedi range to more than 15 Ghana cedi range. If you go to the Forex Bureau, you'll be looking at more than 16 Ghana cedis. But is it something that is normal when it comes to the first quarter of each year, or we should watch this space? What should the Bank of Ghana be doing, so as government as well? Well, the Minister of Finance, Dr. Ato Forson, on what should he be doing and expectations, as well as the Ghana cedi. All these issues wrapped up on PM Express Business Edition, as indeed I'm grateful enough to have in studio with me the Chief Executive of the Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry. He's here with me, and I appreciate his time so much. And also joined on Zoom by an economist, Courage Boti, as well, to do justice to the Minister of Finance, expectations, challenges ahead, and the Ghana cedi. All these issues wrapped up on PM Express Business Edition. We'll be right back after this break. Welcome back to PM Express Business Edition. We're talking about the economy and the Ghana cedi. And today, if you've been following developments in Parliament, the Finance Minister, Dr. Ato Forson, or if you call him Kasil or Kasil Ato Forson, started working today. And first, let's bring you on. And that was his engagement there when he went to the Ministry of Finance to actually engage some of the directors, and they ushered him in. If you could see Fifi Fiavikwete with him as well in the pictures, you saw the Chief Director of the Ministry of Finance, Ivament, and also Dr. Alassane as well, and also Akest, who is the Director of Treasury, and other directors as well at the Ministry of Finance on the executive floor where the minister's office is on the other end. And you saw a banner there welcoming Dr. Kasil Ato Forson to the Ministry of Finance, and he had some meetings there. Let's also roll a story for you where in the meeting and what he said to the directors about trying to make, this is his focus actually, what he said he's going to do as a Minister of Finance: look at fares, stabilize the cedi, reduce inflation, create more jobs to foster inclusive growth as well, and also create opportunities for all Ghanaians, improve partnerships and investment, making Ghana the preferred destination for business, and also prosperity for all of them. Let's also put a story in from his Twitter page, or the Ministry of Finance Twitter page, a story where he was saying that he plans to make prosperity, or actually make sure that every Ghanaian prospers, or actually make it in terms of stabilizing the economy and what it means. When he had that meeting today with the directors at the Ministry of Finance and the issues that he has been saying, of course, he will consistently be mindful of the needs of Ghanaians in terms of whatever action that will take. And if you are familiar with the minister's office, that is the table there, often they have their management meeting. Dr. Ato Forson sitting at the far end. From your right side, you could see Samson Akliko over there. You can also see some of the other directors there. That is Mr. Akis, the Director of the Treasury as well. And Fifi Fiavikwete was with him there today when he had the meeting, sitting at his immediate right, or depending on, so that should be his right or left, sorry. Sitting there at the table for that meeting. His right, sorry, is right there. And if you go through the story, he's talking about the fact that he's called on his team about the fact that it's about making Ghanaians the center of whatever action that they would take when it comes to the whole engagement, stabilizing the cedi, and outlining his vision. He identified priorities including job creation, prudent fiscal management, cedi's exchange rate, reducing inflation, and these were the issues that he's been talking about. And that is why it is good also to get the views of those who matter, those who would be affected by every action that he takes as a minister of Finance. He's been there before as the Deputy Minister of Finance, and now he's coming back, the second coming of Dr. Atuforsen at the Ministry of Finance. And in studio here, as I have with me, Mark Bedu Abuaji. He is the Chief Executive of the Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry. In studio with me here, and also on Zoom, I have an economist, Courage Botia, as well. We'll be doing some analysis on the challenges ahead and all the rest with respect to our discussion tonight as we look at the Ghana Cedi's depreciation and expectations of the Minister of Finance. So Mark, for you, I mean, they say that Ejaba, he's in now, he's that at work. For you, what are your expectations, if I could ask you that?
Well, George, let me first, on behalf of the Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry and the entire private sector, congratulate Dr. Atuforsen and welcome him to the hot seat. In fact, it's difficult to manage the macro economy because there are a lot of linkages and any of the policies or any attempt to solve one of the problems, there are always trade-offs. So he has a very Herculean task to achieve all the things that he said he was going to do. But for us, our expectation is simple, and it's based on the challenges that businesses we've been going through over the past 4 years, that we want a conducive business environment, which we have communicated. And if you look at their manifesto, most of the issues that they said, the things that they are going to do, reduce inflation, ensure stability in the local currency, removal of taxes, and are all the things that you have asked them to do. And it's clearly stated in the manifesto. So we expect him that all the things that he said that he was going to do, he should be able to do them, so that the pressure and the stress on businesses and the business community is at least taken off. I know that it's not going to be just a one-year thing, because the level where we got to, if you have to move out and bring the inflation to the 8% plus or minus 2, which has been our target over the years, if you look at the inflation targeting approach, that is what we want to achieve. It's been extremely difficult. I think for the past 4 years or so, there were, I think, 1 or 2 instances where we were able to achieve that. If you say it's going to do it within 4 years, better.
But the Bank of Ghana had projected that by the first quarter of next year, we should get, based on their extrapolation, so we should get the first quarter next year, actually.
Yes, you know, we say macroeconomic management is not science, it's an art. Because a number of things you can predict, but there are a number of external forces and internal forces that may work against you that are not predictable. So on paper, I mean, using models, you can see that we're able to achieve this. But what are the external forces that you don't have control? For me, if you're able to achieve it, the better. I mean, we've heard Bank of Ghana say they are going to achieve 8%. That is their target over the years.
But the trajectory, things are kind of,
it came down and it started going up again.
But if you look at the month-for-month numbers, we have seen some slowdown there. So the expectation is that we could be on that path of things slowing down.
So, of course, that is the expectation. And if they achieve that, I mean, the better to be for us. But this inflation, there are a number of factors that affect inflation. Food, for instance, with not overnight, we are not going to have food inflation going out. I mean, there should be policies to ensure that we produce more and we transport. If you realize the food inflation, a chunk of it is coming from transportation of food. The cost of transportation,
the Ghana Cost Service has said
is still not going down. I mean, fuel prices are going up. So, of course, the transportation for the 1 year is not going to go down. So, food inflation is still going to be high. And then the depreciation of the cedi in itself,
which we'll be talking about,
actually, also feeds into inflation. So, a number of things will have to be done, for which I think that when he's here, he'll be able to do it. Of course, he said for taxes, he's going to scrap it. And I mean, from his vetting,
you can't wait for it to happen. They said that look forward to the 2025 budget, maybe in March or April. You think it's feasible? The president has said that. He has also echoed that it's going to happen.
I mean, he's put to sleep all the doubt about whether he'll be able to scrap the e-levy. I mean,
but some are saying that under an IMF program as well, it will be difficult to press ahead. He's given an indication that he might seek for a program extension and seek for more support. The fund might not subscribe to you scrapping these lines because it gives you some guarantee of inflows. You have a situation where right now the American companies are threatening that they will use could vote on the IMF board to scrutinize or delay disbursement as an push for that. You need these expenditure line items to guarantee you inflows going forward. You scrap them, it could put some extra pressure on revenue.
No, George, I think that before the minister will make such statement, he would have done a lot of background check. It would be so unfortunate for the minister to read the budget in March and tell us, the business community, that he cannot scrap the e-levy after all these announcements. I don't think that the e-levy will solve the issue with our revenue in Ghana. I think that we have a lot of these tax handles that if you do a lot of tax education, if you ensure that they are streamlined and they are fair, we're able to get a lot of revenue from these tax handles. So e-levy, taking it out will not
help us. Betting
levy, I have my own this thing about betting levy.
It should stay?
For me, if you ask me, yes.
Personal view?
Yeah, personal view.
Has it been able to discourage people from betting? As a tax on the sin tax or tax on alcohol, has it able to stop people from drinking? I think they're even consuming more than ever before. The whole approach of using a tax handle to discourage or correct a behavior or a misbehavior hasn't helped. Smoking. Despite all the laws,
I agree with you perfectly.
People are still smoking.
So the product or the betting tax may not be inelastic. That is where if you increase the rate, it will deter people from people.
On your personal view, you think it should stay?
On my personal view, if they want it to be effective, they rather have to increase it.
Wow.
Otherwise, it is totally also of waste because, as you said, it's not going to solve any problem. At this percent or at 10% or so, it will not deter anybody. But the issue has to do with whether those who are involving themselves in the betting, whether they have alternative source of income. They don't have alternative source of income. So now they will do that. What are we doing to ensure that we create this alternative source of income for them? If you bet, you are not adding significantly to the national income. But if you are productive, you are within the agriculture sector, within the manufacturing sector, you are making your money and you're also adding it to the GDP. The betting is, I mean, people is emotional, somebody sits in his home, there's no productivity, to be frank with you, with the betting.
Mr. Waja, I'll come back to you on your top priorities for you at the chamber level that you think that we do 100 days for a president. What should be Dr. Atufoson's 100 days focus that should be captured in his budget as well? But let me go on Zoom. But before I get on Zoom and get the thought of an economist, Courage, but I want you to roll on a screen for me his Atufoson's major focus areas that he talked about. That is stabilizing the cedi, reducing inflation, creating more jobs to foster inclusive growth, create opportunities for all Ghanaians, improve partnerships and investment, making Ghana the preferred destination for doing business. Courage, are these things feasible, putting on the cap of an economist? Courage, but if you can hear me, I was just trying to get your thoughts on what Atufosin himself has outlined as his major priorities as a Minister of Finance. Are these things feasible, looking at where we are coming from, even though the IMF itself has said that we are making some significant progress? Looking at the economy now, single-digit inflation, stabilizing the cedi. We'll come to the cedi because it's still under some pressure.
Good evening, George, and good evening to your listeners. Good evening to my senior colleague in the studio. And then welcome to Dr. Atufosin to the hot seat. It's indeed a hot seat. To your question, stabilize the cedi, reduce inflation, create more jobs, and foster inclusive growth, create opportunity for all Ghanaians, improve partnerships and investments, making Ghana a preferred destination, prosperity for all. This is what economic management and fiscal policy, monetary policy, and their complementarity is all about. These are the goals every country tries to solve. And in fact, this is the essence of governance, really. When you talk of political economy and economic management, these are the crux, the issues, nothing new, nothing out of the ordinary, really. So I cannot sit here and say it's impossible. In fact, I mean, this is what we must be doing. But the task is a hard one. It's a heckling one. We will go into CD substantively. If you look at inflation, for instance, inflation for a good time under the SWAL government have been under the single digit and within the target band. We all know what accounted for inflation spiking up, and there has been effort to correct it. As at end of 2024, we are 23.8, which is outside
The band.
the projections we had for the year. Government, remember, had a 15% or so projection. Bank of Ghana was between 13 and 17 initially, revised it to 18, but they missed quite spectacularly. And if you look at the monetary policy consultation clause, the upper band of that clause, you realize that it was supposed to be 22 and we are 23.8. So there is work to do. There is work to do on the monetary side of things. There is work to do to create jobs for the teeming youth of Ghana. And it will come from, one, how much revenues we are able to generate, how smart the initiatives and then programs and policies, priority projects that we are going to fund, and how efficient will be with expenditure. And one word he has used consistently during his vetting has been efficiency in expenditure, quality and efficiency of expenditure. We may not be able to increase taxes or even introduce new ones, at least in this first budget. I'm not sure Ghanaians will be very receptive to that. And there are talks of scrapping some. Of course, I may agree that they are not very significant in terms of total contribution to the budget. But what he's facing is actually 93.4%. In fact, going by the budget outlook for 2025, we've not seen his budget yet, but looking at the outlook, which is what they cut a quarter of to make the supplementary budget that we saw. If we are going by that, for expenditure items, so wages and salaries, or compensation of employees in general, goods and services, interest payments, and then transfers to agenda government agencies are supposed to take in total about 197 billion cedis, which is 93% of the revenue expected for 2025. Now, if you are faced with that, and that is just 4 out of a number of expenditure items, and you have to satisfy a nation that has needs, you realize that the task is killing. So these things are possible. It's about planning. It's about tact. It's about how you get Ghanaians on board. It's about the quality of programs you introduce. And it's about how serious and intentional the government itself is about solving our problems. If we're able to front load fiscal consolidation, like I said during the vetting, and then quickly regain access to the market, improve our debt ratings, and then probably get access to the market again, where we could do some borrowing at maybe not too high a cost, and can open avenues for FDIs to flow into the economy, into sectors that can be growth enhancing and has, if you like, high multiply effect. If we can find a way of unlocking the potential of the private sector, the pension funds, the insurance funds, and all those other owners of long-term patient capital into critical sectors like road construction, infrastructure development, and the other sectors. If we can go back to the concept of smart borrowing, where resources are going into self-financing assets, and then we can keep the fiscal stable and within check, then I guess it can be feasible to achieve all of these things within the 4 year ahead of us. But if it's business as usual, like we know all governments do, the rhetoric is so rosy, but then the implementation leaves a lot to be desired, then I think maybe in for another ride, really. So those are my initial thoughts on
Courage, I'll come back to you on the
aspirations.
rigidity of the budget and the biggest elephant in the room here, that is the IMF program and what they can do and what they cannot do. But quickly on revenue as well, what should it be his approach to revenue? I mean, Ghana Revenue Authority ended last year mobilizing about 5% more than what they projected to collect. It was 153 or 54 billion Ghana cedis. But still, when you look at taxes in relation to the size of our economy, we are still not doing well in terms of the ratios. What should be his major priority in the area of revenue mobilization, which has been our biggest challenge since I became an adult. You know, what can you do differently in dealing with that revenue challenge?
Ruthlessness in compliance enforcement.
The
I think that is
businessman,
what is
the businessman is here. I'll come to you, but you just go ahead with your thought, please.
Yeah, ruthlessness, being ruthless in compliance enforcement. I think that is the bit that has been missing in our fiscal administration all this while. We have a lot of taxes. In fact, I dare say that a number of them can go and we can still raise way more than we are doing if everybody is able to pay their bit. What are the systems in place to punish non-payment of taxes? I mean, if I don't declare my taxes, nothing happened. And for a lot of people, they have no business to do it, a government contract or some of the things that require that you bring your tax clearance certificates and all that. For a lot of people, they have nothing to do with government whatsoever. So if your tax clearance certificate is the way you get them, then you get the likes of my colleague in the studio who is a businessman and the many others who are looking for government contracts at some point in time to only comply. But a lot of other people will not comply. And how are we even measuring that? The tax I so declare is actually the tax I'm supposed to pay. How are we tracking it? How are we, for instance, we've developed a Ghana card, which is the base document for account opening and all that. And we have a residential address system that is supposed to be digital and is linked to that card. I mean, so if you pick my Ghana card, I think you'll be able to know what I do because that information is there. You'll be able to know where I save, that information will be there. If we are serious about revenue collection and whether people are paying their due, GRA, I believe, with technology should be sitting in their office and picking individuals at random and look at the flows in their accounts. And that information they can have easily and then be able to say, if these are your flows, and then juxtapose that with how much tax you paid and invite you on Explain Wealth for that. Really, tell me how you're making your money. Tell me how come you made maybe 100,000 this year, but you only paid this much in tax. And there should be implications for even assessing the public hospitals, assessing utilities, assessing basic services with your tax record, really, because we are using taxpayers' money to subsidize for these things. If we are not ruthless with non-compliance and we introduce a number of tax policies, but we don't follow them through, whether people pay or not is not important to us. You see, people must come to the knowledge that yes, we are entitled to good governance, we are entitled to social services, but we also have an obligation to contribute our due. And when you do not do so, we must be ruthless with you. We must make sure that the law deals with you in a way that discourages non-compliance. Until we get there, the solution will be that every time you're in trouble, then you think of new tax handles. The current IMF program is built a lot on revenue growth than expenditure control. And what the past government has done about revenue growth has been to introduce new taxes every year and then. The compliance enforcement has been more or less an attack on businesses where VAT invigilations and all that. Yes, you can be ruthless with that, but not confrontational. And there are a lot of other ways to go about it. So for me, the missing piece in this jigsaw is trying to get what is due Ghana in a very legitimate way and tie the delivery of public services and access to public services to that compliance. Everybody, or when they are Ghana card, we should be able to tell, even when you go to the hospital and plug in your card, that you are compliant with your tax obligation. We should be able to do audit for individuals, for businesses. And then with all the things about transfer pricing, the various ways people cut taxes, the artisans, if you are building a 2-3 bedroom house and you hired a mason, the amount they will charge you, it's unthinkable. They pay nothing on it, if not VAT, or they are going to purchase some good somewhere. How are we getting those people to come in? The hairdressers and all the other people, probably they pay very peanut amounts in some levies or stuff like that that assemblies come around. How are we ensuring that these people get, or we assess them properly and they are also paying their due? And the many others within the value chain. The reason Mokola, same good in Mokola will be way cheaper than one in maybe a
It's
Melbourne
Legon.
and an Accra mall. Is how much tax they pay. The Mokola lady finds way to evade all the taxes so they can sell the same thing for sometimes 50% lower the price. But you go to an Accra mall, you go to a Melcom, and the price is maybe sometimes double. I'm not suggesting we punish everybody with double the price and all that, but if everybody can pay their fair share, we will be on the path to some prosperity.
I'll come back to you on the IMF challenge, but you talked about taxes and being ruthless, and I don't know what the businessman and the Ghana National Chamber of Commerce will say. Quickly, before I come to the 100-day thing, what do you make of what the courageous say? I know you guys are rather pushing for more release because you think that allow us to have more capital, we'll reinvest in the business and employ more people.
So, George, I agree that we should ensure there's compliance and also enforcement. Otherwise, all the tax laws that we have, I mean, there will not be any relevance for that. And the compliance on the side of businesses, I'm not sure any business is against the payment of tax. I'm not really sure. Because we know what we use the tax for and the benefit that all of us.
The chamber is willing, the members are willing to pay
of course,
the taxes.
of course.
Cut down
I mean,
on,
in fact, they have been paying taxes. But if you take a business, for instance, you have to make the profit. If the tax is not pre-production, you have to make the profit before you pay the tax. Obviously, the business is not making the profit. He cannot pay the tax. So if the business has been able to, through all this stress, to make a profit, it's just important that you pay your tax. And the enforcement agency should also ensure that all these taxes are paid. The definition of ruthless sometimes is the Rambo star, where they will just come and you have to stop everything that you are doing just because
some of your members are not paying. I mean, if you talk about businesses not doing well, some people collecting VAT on behalf of the state and say that we are not doing well, so we can't pay. You've collected a tax on behalf of the state. You are not giving it back. And there are certain businesses that do that. You understand me? A tax on profits is not a tax on a loss-making entity, even though some of your members might complain that there are certain tax handles that is pre-production. Sometimes people struggle to get some of your members and business when they complain that we are not doing well and you are charging us taxes.
So, George, that is where the enforcement comes in. If for any reason you have collected a withholding tax, it is not for you. So
some of your members do keep it.
Oh, yes. So that is where I'm saying that the enforcement and probably the punishment should come in. Because you have, I mean, it is clear that the tax that you have collected is for government, is for all of us. You can't keep it. We have had instances where we've been able to solve a number of such problems. So we have people paying some of this withholding tax. So if the enforcement, if GRA also sits down for these taxes to be piled up over the years, it becomes so difficult. So if regularly they are doing their work, and also tax education for me is very key. We don't have to assume that every business owner understands the tax system, the tax policies. So regularly there should be tax education. For the Chamber of Commerce, we've opened our doors for them to come to us and talk to us.
That is GRA?
Yes, GRA, a number of times. Because we realize that some of them need such education for them to be able to comply with some of the taxes. Sometimes you go and say, oh, I mean, once you are here, subsequently, I'll be paying some of these things.
But ignorance of the law doesn't. We have situations where GRA has come and actually to back pay certain charges and all that. And your members do complain a lot.
That's why I'm saying that tax education is very key to ensure that we have compliance and we have enforcement. So I'm not in any way saying that any business person who has collected tax on behalf of government should keep it. I mean, it's totally wrong. Pay your tax. If you've not made profit and you can make a case looking through your books that this is what my books this is how it looks like, I've not made profit, and for that reason I'm not paying corporate tax, I don't think the GRA will fight you. They would understand. But if you have collected tax, I mean, there were issues where some of the taxes, indirect taxes that have been collected by a number of businesses, they are still owing. For me, it's totally wrong. Much as we don't want government to introduce new taxes, the ones that are for government, we should pay. In fact, if we don't do that, that's where government looks for other ways of getting revenue, and that they will introduce new taxes or increase the existing ones. And it's been proven over the years that that is not the way out for government to generate more revenue. So we need to work together. Tax education, a businessman, you know you have to pay your tax. More so, if it's an indirect tax that you have collected, you pay to government. But in increasing tax revenue, George, if you look at the number of unemployed people in this country, let's just make a simple assumption for the sake of this discussion that businesses are doing well and all these individuals have been engaged or they are doing something.
Direct or indirect.
Direct or indirect. The tax revenue will go up. And as you said, there are a lot of people who are not paying taxes. A lot.
Which you and I, we know.
Yes. That's why I want this administration to look out for those people.
Be heavy on compliance.
He cited an example of these artisans. Sometimes some of the money we pay to them and the fact that they are not paying any tax on it. And your salary, because you can easily be identified, they are chasing you. The work is out there for whoever is taking up that role as the Commissioner General of GRA. Is not to sit
Anthony
in the office.
Sapon, near KPMG, senior partner.
Yes, but to go out or find an innovative way to get those people, everybody to pay a little bit of it, so that you won't pile it on the field that you can identify. There are a lot of people, democratic people, I'm not saying they should go there, but the kind of monies they are making there, it's because also they themselves are also not keeping records. So it make it extremely difficult for GRA to say that you have made such and such profit. That is where we need to find an innovative way. We have, said this over the years, we want to expand the tax, we want to expand the tax. If you go to any tax-related economic class, they will tell you expand the tax. But what exactly are we supposed to do? Those rents and all those big places, the buildings that are there, that they are not paying any rent tax and all those things. Let's identify them. Let everybody pay a little bit of it, and I'm sure that they will make more revenue. In fact, let me say here that if the Minister of Finance, for that matter, government, decides that in the 2025 budget, they are going to scrap e-levy, so they're going to find a way to introduce another nuisance tax. The Chamber of Commerce
levies or something,
and the business community will resist that. We are going to resist that. And by so doing, I'm also assuring him that we are going to work together to ensure that the businesses that are not paying their taxes, we will help them to identify them so that they pay. We don't want.
What if it comes in the form of reviewing some levies? It might not be a direct tax handle and all the rest.
That is one challenge we have had. Usually,
which has happened in the past, actually.
Even now, we concentrate on taxes, but look at the levies,
charges,
fees and charges that are there. They all add up to the cost.
Clearing goods at the ports.
A number of them. Now, every agency that you go, because they want to generate internal revenue, internal IGF, they want to generate internal funds to, just to help them undertake that. They are all adding up one charge, one fee or the other. But usually we don't talk about them. But they also are also.
So what if government goes through that rule? Yeah, we'll take up these tax handles, but we wouldn't introduce new taxes, but we'll find a way to hike certain levies and fees and charges to make up for that.
We are actually monitoring this space, actually. In fact, if there's the need to introduce any other thing, they should engage. When I had the opportunity to discuss with the Minister of Trade, I said, under no circumstances should a new tax be introduced without the Minister of Trade not being aware and consulting us. Because whatever tax that is coming out, the effect will be on businesses. So if a tax is coming out, then the Minister of Trade will engage all of us. This is a tax. What will be the implication of this tax? How do we help? How do we ensure that the government gets its revenue and the businesses are also sustainable and resilient over the period? So these are the dynamics that we need to look at. The minister may not have control over fiscal policy, may not have control over monetary policy, but whatever policy comes out of these two arms of macroeconomy is going to affect businesses. So you should have good relationship with these key stakeholders to ensure that everything that is coming out will help business.
Quick one, you spoke about unemployment, and the president speaking through his chief of staff at the Sky Group program said that they would now want to incentivize you to create jobs because they cannot do that. So they are going to formalize that if you can create X amount of jobs, we'll extend X amount of incentives to you, your members, and if you're a business owner. What do you make of that proposal that they're trying to pitch? Because they see unemployment as the biggest threat to economic stability. So we cannot create the jobs. We're going to offer fresh incentives to your members. You create the jobs and we give you this.
It's a brilliant idea. In other jurisdictions, if you're able to employ a given number of people, they give you some tax relief. So every business is now expanding and willing to employ people because of that tax relief. So you are solving a problem. The people that are being employed, they also pay tax. So you look at cost-benefit analysis of it.
Yeah.
So if the government says that I haven't seen the kind of incentive they are going to provide, but it could be a tax relief or a stimulus package. That I want you to expand. I've seen the potential in your business for local consumption and also for export, and also for you to be able to engage a number of these youths who are looking for jobs. So I'm giving you this amount of money. It's not for free. Maybe you will pay over a given period of time, but this is what I expect you to do, that you have to expand and engage a number of people so that the youth that are out there will get a job to do. In the expansion process, you are solving a problem. If it's a product that we are importing, once you expand, you are solving a problem of we not importing those products again. And in the end, you will solve the issue of depreciation and all those things. You would have also solved the problem with unemployment. You see, the issue where we concentrate on a kind of growth, that growth is not translating
jobless growth,
economic development. I've always had a challenge with it. So when a politician comes around
are growing,
and say
the economy by X amount,
X amount, recently 7.2 became an issue, and say we are handing over. I went down to look at the growth poles, where the growth is coming, and a chunk of it is coming from an enclave industry like the mining and quarry. How many Ghanaians are being employed there? How many Ghanaians owns those factories or those mining firms? So you would have grown, but that growth is not translating into generating employment. It's not translating into poverty reduction. So for me, that growth, I don't see it as any other growth. But if you have concentrated on expanding the manufacturing sector, a very long value chain, where within each node you will be able to engage a number of people. If you link agric to manufacturing, those who are producing the raw materials, they have a job to do. Those who be transporting the raw materials to the factories, they have a job to do. Go to the factory floors. The machines are working 24 hours. Individuals are working. We engage them. We employ them. Those who will be distributing, we also have a job for them. So my, advice to the Minister of Trade and to government is to look at the manufacturing sector. That is the only way out to solve this unemployment issue. Is the only way out to reduce or stabilize the currency. In fact,
and it'll be coming to the currency. But Mr. Abaja, I just want to get your thought. I mean, we do first 100 days for the president. He's given us an indication, Dr. Tuforson, that he's going to, these tax handles will be done in the budget. Let's look forward to the budget and the research of the economy. What should be from the business community's major focus and priority as in a first 100 days deliverable?
So, I think you have mentioned one, is the tax issue. The other one has to do how they will be able to bring confidence back into the economy. When His Excellency was delivering his inaugural address, one statement that caught my attention is that he's inviting both local and foreign investors to come back. We have had an experience.
Have they gone?
A lot of them left.
Oh, okay.
A lot of them were also sitting on the fence, looking at what will happen. And it's important that as a new president, you tell them that this is what I'm going to do. So I need you back. Whatever the situation is, I'm going to resolve it. So that confidence, for me, should be able to come. And it will come when people look at the policies that will be put in place. Policies Are they incentivizing private sector? Are they stimulating private sector? So the budget in itself, for me, will send a strong signal to the people out there.
You want to look at the budget as the biggest test of their commitment
exactly
to private sector
and how they'll be able to
investment.
also engage the IMF. Their hands are tied, and they need a more diplomatic way to engage the IMF. That looking at this situation, I think that this is what we have to do. We need to understand that. Also give them assurance that this will yield the necessary results that we need. I don't think IMF is so strict that if you come out with a policy that, makes a lot of sense in revamping our economy, they will say, no, because you have said this, we will not allow you to do it. One is that we need revenue. Two, we need to look at our expenditure, right? The challenges we have had is because consistently we've been running a budget deficit. And anytime you want to finance a budget deficit, you create one problem or the other. When you have a deficit, either you are financing it domestically by borrowing or by using taxes, or you are getting external funding. Domestically, if you want to borrow domestically, you'll be cutting out the private sector, and that is what is going on. Go to the TB market. Government is borrowing billions. So
Every
for a
day.
typical bank, for me, they are not doing what they are supposed to do.
Or even your
the
personal
financial,
income.
yes, the financial
You will not be-
intermediation that we expect the bank to do, to take excess funding and give it to those who need it for businesses. So they take it and give it to government. They go back to sleep. At the end of it, they get 25%, 26%, and then they are cool about that. Now, if you want to bring in tax, then you also come and cripple the businesses. If you have the kind of tax system that we have, where we want to introduce new difficult taxes, we are not streamlining it, they are not fair, they are very complex, even difficult to understand. You are crippling business. If you want to borrow, then you are putting pressure on your currency.
Purpose, yeah.
Because anytime you would want to pay, you need to convert the cedi into dollars.
Yeah.
And if you take, we discuss depreciation. When we say an exchange rate, it's price, it's demand and supply.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just a simple price between your currency and that of the other.
Yeah.
So if we are demanding more to pay for a loan we have taken, it means that your cedi will depreciate. So I would expect that if there's a need for a budget deficit, it should be as small as possible. And the deficit, the value should actually come from a reduction in expenditure rather than trying to say that I need revenue, so I'm bringing in taxes, I'm chasing businesses unnecessarily, and all those kind of things. So we need to balance it. I have said that macroeconomic management is one of the difficult things that anybody can do. So I don't envy Dr. Atuforsen, but I know that he has the capacity and the people around, people to support him to do that. And that is why we've put him there. No matter how difficult it is, that is a responsibility to ensure that we have macroeconomic stability, an environment with a lower inflation, stable exchange rate, or not unnecessary taxes, and an environment that businesses are comfortable with to operate, expand, and engage the people that are looking.
Let me bring in an economist, Courage Potier, and indeed they've talked about resetting the economy. They've talked about the big push and all the rest. But a lot of people have forgotten about the rigidity of the budget and the IMF program as well, and the restriction that it puts on Dr. Atuforsen as well, and all these things. Should we lower our expectation because of these externalities and the impact on whatever that they want to do as a government and even the finance minister?
Yes, if there is any lesson I've learned in my 8-9 years of following the Ghanaian economy and in my professional life, it will be to say that learn to under-promise and over-deliver. Because and I've learned also a second lesson to not make promises when I'm excited. The reason is this. I think there is very little to learn from the success stories of people. Success communicates that, okay, all is well, you're good, you're that, and blah, blah, blah. But there is a lot to learn from failure. I would rather this government analyze critically what may have gone wrong with the past government. And if we are diagnosing correctly, a lot of the problem we have is over-promising and trying to achieve them at all costs, even when the revenue basket does not support it. And our history with IMF is always about this. You are not generating enough revenue, but you are ramping up expenditure and you have to consolidate all the time. So people complain about IMF and all the one-way solution and all that. But if your sickness is malaria, you keep getting malaria treatment. And that is what our situation is. So as he walks into that office, if I were him and if I were the president, I would rather underpromise. And I don't believe in this 100-day thing. You see, there is a lot you don't understand that will not appear in any handing over statement. It will take you sitting there, going through document, having conversations, meetings, for you to understand the scale of what is before you. For instance, in February, early February, there is a coupon payment obligation of over 6 billion cedis that is supposed to fall due. And it is the reason that for the last 4 or 5 weeks or so, you are seeing over subscriptions on the T-bill market and the rates are going up. So you are doing 91 day at 28.4, and then you are doing 364 day at over 30%. And every time there is coupon coming up, we have to overborrow on the T-bill market to try to pay those coupons. What are we doing? We're not paying down the debt. We're racking up more debt. And the big job will be, how do you create a system that ensures that you pay those coupons seamlessly, building up your sinking fund balances and then funding it and then making sure that all the coupons that fall due, you have a daunting tax of now resuming external debt service. So your current account, which has been in surplus for some time now and is supposed to be cushioning the CD, will soon revert into the deficit territory. And then you would have to think again. And then the many other things really. So if I were them, I won't be making 100-day commitment of maybe setting up a women development bank or scrapping some taxes or that. I would want to study the situation carefully and then have the right conversation with the development partners and come up with a budget that addresses the needs of the market and the populace and all that. Of course, the talk about engaging the IMF, we are under program, clearly defined targets. Those things are not going to be compromised. At best, what you get is an extension. And then, of course, maybe because you are extending, some of the parameters for measuring performance can be relaxed a bit because you have a longer time to achieve them. But nothing will be taken away from the fact that you have to have a debt to GDP of 55% by a certain timeline. Because for a lower middle income country, market access country of our kind, that is what is ideal. And so you see countries like Kenya, countries like Nigeria. Nigeria has a debt to GDP ceiling of 45% encoded. Kenya has about 50% or thereabout. And they've actually tried to encode an absolute figure and later a percentage of GDP and all that. That is where countries that are larger than us and probably more advanced than us are looking at in terms of debt to GDP. You can't do less. And we have a target of external debt service of to revenue ratio of not more than 18%. Those targets are not going to be wished away. You still have to achieve them. So you need to look at the context within which you're operating, and that informs what policies you roll out. But if you tie yourself to a 100-day commitment and then you are forced to roll them out at all costs, then I'm asking at myself, whose expense or what has to give for you to achieve that really.
But courage, just a quick one. In our economic class, we all thought about the political economy. So yes, be prudent and everything, but there's the politics aspect of managing a macro economy. How did they deal with all these things? And your challenge.
That's why the job is hard, right? Of course, I understand. And given the kind of campaign we've seen, you are under obligation to fulfill everything you've said. But you see, if we start on that tangent of political economy, fulfilling the aspirations of the people at what cost, because I've said it, I should do it, and you do not give due consideration to what it means for your deficit, what it means for debt accumulation, what it means for fiscal sustainability. If you do not give prior consideration to that before you roll out some of these things, or if you even do them, give those considerations, but you are pursuing a manifesto promise or a certain commitment without looking at what is prudent, you realize that yes, we are spending, but the spending is not going into if you like, high multiplier sectors. And so the job creation agenda, you will not achieve, right? So let me go back to the previous government. There were very interesting policy propositions like one village, one dam, and the intention is to make water available for all year-round farming. And we spent some cities in there. And because it's one village, one dam, every community must get some. No due consideration was given to what size is reasonable and can serve the needs of the people and achieve the objective. So if you go, the point I'm making, if you go that tangent of I promise this, so I must do it, you tend to do things that are suboptimal, whose returns may not be very impactful like you would have wished.
Courage,
So
I want you to quickly
caution.
hold on there, Courage, to take a quick break. But when we come back, Courage, we'll be talking about the Ghana Cedi. If you've been watching the numbers, maybe all in the frenzy of a new year and the politics and the vetting, there's some sudden pressure on the Ghana Cedi. How can we contain it, and what needs to be done? This is PM Express Business Edition. Right back after this break. Community for the new Minister of Finance as he took office today, engaging some directors at the Ministry of Finance and also the Ghana Cedi. If you have been watching the numbers, there is some sudden pressure on the Ghana Cedi, and what should be done? What about those who would argue that for every first quarter of every year we see these numbers, but some are saying that does coming events cast their shadow? What can we do to close in this pressure so that thing doesn't get out of hand for businesses out there? Let me start first with Mark. I mean, you've seen the numbers. Worried, or, as expected, so much ado about nothing.
I think we should be worried. It's not a good start for the year. In fact, late last year, we saw some stability and a bit of appreciation. I said that it looks more artificial. And it's not.
Do you think that
it's not
you thought that it was artificial?
Yes.
It was managed, if I can use the expression, staged and all the rest?
Yes, because the way it was going, because of the kind of politics. But it's not sustainable. If you want to do that, it means you need to pump in a lot of dollars every month. From the beginning of the year up to the time that Bank of Ghana pumped in about $150 million or so, every month the cedi was depreciating. Every month until when they pumped in that money. So it wasn't going to be something that was sustainable over the period. But at the beginning of every year, we experience such slight depreciation because people will need money to pay for things they have imported. The bigger companies will now have to send some monies back home and other things. So you experience that. For me, it is the rate that is of more concern to me. If it's quite minimal, then we can attribute it to the normal cycle of the first quarter depreciation. But if it's increasing the way it is increasing now, if it's not managed, then getting to the latter parts in the middle, we are likely to have some challenges.
Have you started seeing the impact of this already on your transactions? Because it's expected, and it appears that nobody's talking about it. I mean,
no, obviously, depreciation is not good for any business person. More so when we have an economy that is more open, that we import a number of things, even finished product and raw materials. Businesses are importing raw materials and machines on a daily basis. So any time that you get this depreciation, and if you get to the port, they use the current rate to calculate whatever you have to pay for you. So for me, it is important that I don't expect the cedi to go back to the 10 and the 9s, but stability is key so that we'll be able to predict what will happen if you have to pay something, what you have to do. So we need to be also cautious of how it is depreciating. But if you look at the depreciation in itself, we have short-term things that will cause depreciation, and we have long-term. In fact, we have turned all the short-term things into long-term over the years. If you want to solve depreciation by increasing export, right, and reducing import, it is a long-term project. If we had started long ago, it would have been short-term for now. But because we keep postponing, it always become a long-term. Now, what we have to do is how do we get the dollars into the economy? And obviously, in the immediate stage, you cannot reduce import overnight. So what we need to do now is to look at how each and every one of us, we prefer foreign products to local products. If you look at Ghana, we have capacity to produce most of the things that we import. And that is where we need to start from. If we take a decision now that over this period, 5, 6, 7 years, most of the things that we are importing, we are going to reduce the importation by such percentage. That is the responsibility of the Minister of Trade with all of us. That within the next 4 years, if you are importing 1 billion worth of tin tomatoes, we are reducing it to 200 million. Look at the gap. So you wouldn't need the 800 million for you to be able to import that. Then the long term now becomes short term over the period. But all of us, if we decided to go in and always be consuming this foreign products, we end up depreciating our currency. Now, in the short term, your inflation also contributes to depreciation, the relative price levels. That's one of the theories. And anytime our inflation goes up, it feeds into the depreciation. So what are we doing to tame the inflation? We need to do that. And productivity as well. Countries that are not productive enough will always have their currency depreciating. And that is what we are experiencing. We are not productive. So we don't export more. We import almost everything. And then we end up weakening our currency. We have done artificial management of our currency over the years. And that is what we are doing. This thing is not sustainable. It's not backed by any economic fundamental. Let us work on having it on a sustainable basis, both looking at it on the short term and also on the long term.
One of the drivers that the commercial banks data and everything have explained is about the sudden demand coming from businesses, corporate manufacturing firms, energy sector. I don't know whether, I know that some time ago, Bank of Ghana tried to even let the multinationals to stagger their dividend payments and all the rest through the banks. And I don't appreciate much in terms of being in the manufacturing space and all the rest, that is feasible that some of your members will stagger some of these imports so that sudden pressure in January where everybody is demanding dollars to import. We don't print dollars in it. Obviously, it will put pressure on the local currency because this sudden K1 pressure thing has been perennial, and we don't see that because of the change in government or this government and all those things, but that is what happens. What are your members also doing to stagger these imports? Because sudden demand for dollars, obviously, the city will suffer.
George, people don't, but for those who will take it for speculative purposes, they don't demand dollars because they want to keep it. They demand dollars to do business. If you have to pay a loan you have taken in the first quarter, you won't tell me that because you have been told to stagger, you will not pay the loan and rather go and pay a penalty. You have to pay your loan. If you and I are demanding for foreign tomato paste, we are demanding for foreign toilet roll when we are spending
mineral water
and all those things.
Votes, they're all over shelves.
A business person is looking for an opportunity. So if we create the demand and we are not able to supply locally, they will take the dollar and go and buy and bring it. The only way you can stagger, that is when it's your profit and you have control over it and you have to pay. That one you can go into an agreement. But when you have already bought the product. I mean, a lot of them during Christmas, they imported. It is time for them to pay. Are you telling me that because they say stagger, you won't go and pay people you have taken the money from? You have to pay. Otherwise, the next time when you go, they will not supply their product to you. So we don't have to blame them for demanding. We should blame all of us, ourselves, for creating the demand for foreign product, for which reason they are using the dollar to import. So it's a brilliant idea. We also suggested that they should stagger the way they transfer their monies.
Dividend
but
payments
there is
and
a
all
limit to which you can do that. If it's a dividend, the one who has invested, the shareholder, needs his money to also do another transactions. And you are saying that because you are struggling. So it's something all of us will have to decide. There are some that we will have control over, for which dividend and other things. But if I have taken a loan and I have to pay, George, I have to pay. Otherwise, the next time I won't get a facility. Otherwise, I won't get my suppliers giving me the product. And that will be difficult for me.
You are against currency management, but I'll come back to you again to find out from you, what can the Bank of Ghana do? Tomorrow they'll be winding up their Monetary Policy Committee meeting. You are against the policy rate hike as well. But let me go to Courage Boti. I remember last time we spoke, I asked you the question about the sustainability of the Bank of Ghana's current intervention to stabilize the cedi, and you couldn't really stick your neck out. Is the current event actually exposing the Bank of Ghana? And what happened? You kept the currency for stabilizing for more than 2 months. We've seen that it is struggling this month.
I believe I actually stated my position clearly that day that it wasn't sustainable, right? I remember I did. And the reason I alluded is this. Look, the rate of monthly reserve accumulation versus the rate we're depleting it on a weekly basis from the period starting November, I think, into the early weeks of December, it was really just a mismatch, right? But what I wasn't sure about is what the game plan is. And I asked that question on your show, that what's the game plan? What is the end goal? How are we convincing the market that that's what we're trying to do? And I remember telling you that the cedi would always, the speculators will always test the Bank of Ghana's resolve at some point. And from what we know, the cedi would always trace its path back to where it's coming from. And the reason is this: once it tests a certain level, if you put in an intervention to try to correct it, the market will test your resolve, and they will test the cedi at some point. It will trace it path back, unless the intervention is one that can last and can be enduring. But it turned out it's not the case, right? We know that we couldn't be doing 200+ million on a weekly basis. And in fact, I think from 7th December or so till yesterday, the Bank of Ghana hasn't come to market with any spot intervention until yesterday, from what my traders told me, right? So the market has been starved since I think December 8th until yesterday. And in that period, after injecting 200+ million every week for about 4 or 5 weeks or so, and then going quiet for that period, clearly those who speculated and thought it wasn't sustainable would always want to come back and test the situation. And that is, I think, what is playing out. And the cedi is doing nothing but tracing its path back to where it came from. Let me bring in this perspective. So we talk about import, export all the time, and it's true. We have to increase our export and reduce our import, correct? And you surmise it rightly that the solution seems to be in the long term. We never start anything about it. But the angle I want to bring to this conversation is this: if you watch our merchandise trade balance, I think for the last 7 or so years, every year of the last 7 years, even in the COVID year, we have recorded trade surplus.
Yeah.
Merchandise trade surplus. It means we are exporting more than we're importing, right? And the problem seems more in the trading services and in the transfers and external payments that we do.
But Courage, just a quick one. Who is owning those monies? If I can use
that is where I'm going to.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
That's where I'm going to. And then of course the coupon payment and all that. Those are and so you see your current account, mostly the deficit. But the crux of the question is, who owns our economy? So if you look at the top 4 export commodities, it's gold, it's oil, it's cocoa, and it's what again? I think gold, oil, cocoa, and a non-traditional export. The traditional export, out of a 15 billion export receipt, will give you about 2.53 billion. Cocoa is what we can say we own 100%. But even that, we actually, well, whatever the case, the money comes to the local economy and it sits there, whether you syndicate or not. But look at gold. How much of gold do we own? How much of oil do we own? And what is the national blueprint to increase Ghanaian ownership of the local economy? FDIs are good, right? You need them where you don't have capital, but there should be a national blueprint to own the local economy and to dominate some of the sectors we hold key or we think are key to our sustainability. Until we do that, and then the gold receipts, when they come, it is the portion that are used for operational expenses that are kept here. The rest of it is repatriated. And same for oil, right? So you can see flows coming in terms of export receipt, but they are not domiciled here. And so if there is any nation or any president or government serious about industrialization, that industrialization should have a leg of domestication, getting influential Ghanaians. Nigeria has successfully created a multi-billionaire out of Dangote with all the state support and everything. And there are a few other billionaires in Nigeria.
Should we do the same thing in Ghana, Courage?
No, but what's wrong?
Devoid of politics? Who do we support? Maybe Magbegua Boaje is here. We can do that. Support him.
If we can create a few mega entrepreneurs in Ghana who can provide our national needs. Look at Dangote and his oil refinery and what he can do for Nigeria and Africa, right? Why are we not thinking of, and I'm not talking about corruption here, I'm not talking about favoritism here. Let's legitimately support Ghanaians through tax concessions, through incentives and all of that to create mega, and let's identify a few of them that have solid business plans and have business plans that resonate with our national aspiration. Support them. And let's provide incentives for them to thrive. And if things like cement, if things like, name them, all the essential goods can be produced locally by Ghanaians and all that, then we can provide the subsidies that make them even competitive in the local market. We don't have to import them. And they will be creating multiple jobs across the value chain. I think there are things we're doing. When we do that, the outflows from our economy will be reduced. And then the contractors, are we building capacity? We always bring these foreigners to construct our roads, to do this. They are tied to the grant and all of that are coming. And I know there is local content participation and all of that. But to what extent, if you picked one contractor, two contractors over maybe 5-10 years, and you say you want to build capacity, attach them to foreign contractors. For time, they should be able to do the things the foreigners do, and we shouldn't be depending on a lot of them. So it's the payment for services, the transfer payments, the coupon payments, and then all those other things. That is the source of our CD problem, not necessarily the export-import bit. And of course, the ownership of even the export, who owns them. We must deal with them heads on. And once we do it, that the incentive to speculate will be automatically gone.
Correct.
The seasonality effect, yes.
Solutions now. First, the Bank of Ghana is meeting monetary policy rate. Should it go up to check those things? What should the Bank of Ghana? Some have kicked against what you call the management of the currency, that temporary relief. But what should be done now, at least to significantly slow the rate of depreciation so that things doesn't get out of hand? From the monetary side, what should be done now?
Unfortunately, there are no magic ones in this whole conversation. Ghanaians want and businesses want, and my colleague in the studio will be happy if the policy rate is reduced. It might trickle into lower credit and all that. But when you do that, you're also losing competitiveness, right? The portfolio investment and all of that you expect will come in with attractive rates you may not get. And we have an important problem, right? Inflation closed the year higher than we expected and closed higher than the monetary policy consultative clause. What that meant is that you need to have conversation with the IMF and tell them how you intend to correct it. And we have noise around inflation, at least if the committee believes that the appreciation we saw in November, December, its lag impact could translate into a slightly slower inflation print for January, then they may hold the rate where it is. But if they see the noise, the increase in the depreciation pressure mounting, fuel prices at the pump rising, and the many food price pressures and all of that, if they see it as a threat for the first quarter, remember, over this crisis period, they've tried to keep a real monetary policy rate of between 4 and 7%.
Yeah.
Now, the real monetary policy rate is about 3.2%. So if monetary policy stance need to be appropriately tied to have a handle on inflation, and they do not see inflation coming down in the next two prints, then they may have to hike a rate to restore a real policy rate that is within a range that can control inflation. And the outlook for inflation is not so great this year. They talk about 8% by or coming to the target by end of year. From everything around, from the noise around, and there will be a major utility tariff review in August.
Yeah.
Already, we know that there is cost under recovery in the energy sector. And that is why the quarterly adjustment, if there is a major tariff review, you expect that to result in some significant jump and cost to businesses and all that. All of those have inflation consequences, really. So I do not see a lot of room for monetary accommodation, and they may have to at best keep rates at the current level, or for this January meeting, depending on the outlook on inflation, probably you might even see a marginal hike. And so if we talk of direct intervention to support the cedi, yes, we have built reserve above what the minimum net reserve under program requires for 2024. So there may be scope for a bit more intervention. The direction of monetary policy may likely change with a change in government. The current governor's term is approaching an end, and then the Monetary Policy Committee may have a number of changes in there. And so depending on the stance they come with and what the orientation may be, we could see maybe some more interventions to try to support the cedi or otherwise. But the truth is that we need to approach the market now in a, if you like, with maybe competitive bids and all that. The talk is to eliminate the bilateral transactions they've had with banks and other institutions and all that. So it's going to be more a price competition now. And so the scope for direct intervention through the spot market, through the auctions, is what option is available to the Bank of Ghana this moment. And it depends on how much reserve we are accumulating. It depends on the decisions they'll make on things like gold for reserve and all that. And when I had the gold board policy, it got a bit interesting for me. We may not be producing the gold, but if the gold board is going to act like cocoa board, buy local gold and then maybe trade it for our reserve needs and all that, then we may not be producing, but we could be able to accumulate a lot more. So I'm interested in knowing what that policy is in its full-fledged form, and then how it could translate into building reserve.
And
government.
I get from you that there are limited options for us now, but I'll come back to. But I mean, policy rate, should it go up? Because the proposals he's making that in these kind of environment, maybe the good thing to do is to a marginal hike or hold the rate. I mean, what is the Chamber's perspective on the policy rate? They are meeting announcement on Monday.
We have over the years been complaining about the policy rate. For us, looking at the cost of credit, would have loved that the policy rate to come down. But I'm also want to be quite objective here and look at the factors that affect the policy rate. It's only when they improve that they can bring it down. I mean, if you see the cedi still depreciating, if you see the inflation at that level, I mean, no matter how noisy or shouting you do, it will not necessarily change anything. But I would advise that at least they should keep it, if they are not reducing it, they should keep it at this level. Any attempt to increase it means that all the gains would have made by reducing it, that had also caused a reduction in the interest rate. We will lose all those gains, and the interest rate will now go back. Interest rate goes back, it's a cost. Businesses will pass it on to us. Inflation will go back, and then we come back to the same issue. So being objective and man back, I think that looking at the numbers, they can maintain it at this level, and it wouldn't cause anything to the central bank, to the economy. But to increase the policy rate at this level for me, it will not be good.
Do you want the Bank of Ghana to still be active? We've learned that they've not been active on the market quite a while, to pump in some dollars, at least for that temporary relief, whilst they look for the medium-term approach to contain the situation?
Obviously, there is no option.
Pumping more dollars?
Yes, our reserves looks good.
Quite, so
I'm
they
not
should
saying
pump
that
in
they
more
should
dollars.
go and bring, but to manage the situation, for the city to at least be stable over this period of time, I think that they should manage the situation for some time.
Courage, 30 seconds. Your final thoughts, Cedi, way forward, 30 seconds. Courage.
Let's taper our expectations as a people. And I think the option Bank of Ghana has is to try to manage, use moral suasion to manage expectations on the market. And then within the little legroom they have, intervene on the market to try to smoothing volatility while we look for probably medium to long-term solutions to the city's problems. It's not a quick fix, but yes, it's doable if we put our minds to it.
10 seconds, Dr. Tuforson.
Dr. Tuforsen, I'll say we should all exercise patience for the new government to settle in, and then also we should manage our expectations. Ghana will not turn arbitrary overnight, really, and we need to manage our expectations.
Mark, your final words, one or two, and then the Cedi as we try and wrap up.
Well, I think that we all have to support him. I mean, some of the decisions may not be palatable to us, but if in the long term, all of us are going to benefit, I think we need to support him. But one thing I want him to do, now that is there now, to look at exactly what the situation is. And communicate to the people.
Tell us the state of the economy, true state of the economy.
True state of the economy, so that people will know whether within this period you'll be able to do A, B, C, D. Let him communicate that when I went in there, looking at the numbers, this is the situation. Over this period, this is what I'm going to do. Then all of us will be will not be too expectant of changing the economy overnight, which of course it will not happen. So let's support him. The chamber is ready to support him. And I also think that we need to work on the city, manage the situation, and then we can have a very comfortable economy for all of us.
Comfortable economy for everyone. I know the debate will still go on in your homes and in your offices about what the new Minister of Finance should be doing to bring about the needed stabilization of the economy and the resetting of the economy as they have promised to us. This has been PM Express Business Edition. Have a great day.